Hey everyone, this week's update is going to be a bit shorter than last week. Mainly because I've only been focused on reading one book. Uh, because I'm currently about halfway through Red Seas on the Red Skies by Scott Lynch, the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series. Uh, and as most of you know by now, I absolutely loved The Lies of Locke Lamora. It was the book I pulled from my TBR jar for May, and it ended up being one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. And not just one of the best books I've read recently, but one of those books that immediately makes you want to keep reading the series. And because of that, I went into Red Seas Under Red Skies with pretty high expectations, and maybe even a little bit unrealistically. But when a book impresses me that much, it's hard not to hope the sequel will do the exact same thing. Now that I'm about halfway through, I can safely say that hasn't happened. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. This book hasn't reached the same heights as The Lies of Locke Lamora for me, but it's still a really good read. Everything just feels one notch down compared to the first book. The story hasn't grabbed me quite as strongly, the setting isn't quite as memorable, and so far I don't feel quite as invested in what's happening. But again, we're comparing it to one of my favorite fantasy books, and being slightly worse than that still means it's a very enjoyable book. One thing that definitely still works is Locke and Jean. They're just great characters to spend time with. And the friendship remains one of the highlights of the series for me. Whether they're planning a heist, they're just arguing with each other, or trying to get themselves out of trouble, they're always entertaining. And trouble seems to find them wherever they go. And in this book, they're trying to pull off a massive robbery involving a change house, which is basically a fantasy version of a casino mixed with a bank. And as you expect, it's one of the most secure places around, which of course makes Locke want to rob it. The planning and scheming is still a lot of fun to read, and one of the things I enjoy most about these books is watching complicated plans slowly come together. And usually just before everything starts going wrong. And what has surprised me most is the direction the story actually takes. I knew it involved another big con, but also pirates and sea adventures. But the way it suddenly changed was very unexpected. One minute we're dealing with casinos and confidence tricks, and the next we're out at sea dealing with ships, sailors, and pirates. And that's not a complaint. It was just very unexpected. And part of me misses spending time in the city environment from the first book, because Camera was such a fantastic setting. But at the same time, I do appreciate that Scott Lynch isn't simply repeating himself. It would have been very easy to write another book that felt exactly like The Lies of Locke Lamora. But instead he's taken the characters somewhere completely different. And I can say so far it's definitely working, even if I don't love it as much as the first book. And I'm curious to see how the second half of this book develops. It feels like all the pieces are now in place, and the story is ready to really get moving. And hopefully the second half can push this book from really good into great. And once I finish Red Seas Under Red Skies, I'll finally be reading Swear by Michael Crichton. And if you've been watching me for a while, you've probably heard me say that before. I feel like I've been talking about actually reading Swear for a while now. Every time I'm making reading plans, it somehow ends up on the list, and then every time something else gets picked first. But this time it's actually happening. And what's interesting is that I've never read a Michael Crichton novel before. I've heard great things about his books for years, especially if you like science fiction that moves at a fast pace. And I also know very little about Sphere, which is exactly how I like it. I know there's some sort of mysterious discovery, deep underwater, but that's pretty much it. And honestly, that's enough to get me interested. So yeah, that's where I'm at this week. I'm halfway through Red Seas Under Red Skies, enjoying it quite a bit, even if it hasn't lived up to the incredibly high bar set by The Light of Locke Lamora. And I'm finally getting ready to finally pick up Sphere by Michael Crichton. And as always, let me know what you're reading at the moment. And if you've read either of these books, I'd love to hear what you thought of them. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.